Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Tzameret Rubin, a senior lecturer at Oxford Brookes University, and I lead the TiPS accelerator. Welcome everyone to the TiPS festival. It's the second day of that of our festival, and that's the second year we run this festival for professional services, talking about technology. And today, the session today is going to be the solution is already on your desk. Together with me hosting this session in the festival is Derek Southall, is the founder and CEO of Hyperscale. Hi, Derek. Group Limited, and few things to tell you about the TiPS accelerator before we start this session. So the TiPS is an acronym of Technology Professional Services. It's the first in the world innovation adoption accelerator, which is quite a cool thing to have. And it's led by two universities, Lancaster Universities, Oxford Brookes University, and we are funded by UKRI and ESRC. And that's the second, we finished now the second year of running this accelerator. And all we do is try to help professional services, accountancy, and law firm adopt technology. This is a TiPS. If you're in the call, if you can put a link to TiPS accelerator and things you think would be useful for people that participate. Thank you very much. So let me introduce our panelists. Today in our panel we have Damien Behan, Innovation and Technology Director in Brodies. Damien, hello. James Grice, the Head of Innovation and AI in Lawfront. Hi, James. Anthony Stables, Chief Information Officer in Fourth Turns LLP. Hey, and Derek is hosting that with me. And we have two tech companies. We have Maya Grozin, partner and manager in Synapx. Hi, Maya. And Dan Jenkins, founder of Emmi AI. Hi, guys. Right, so let's start, go around and introduce ourselves, and I'll start with you, techies. If you can introduce yourself, Maya, maybe you first. What's your company is trying to solve, and few words about yourselves, and then we jump to the law firm joining us. Go ahead, Maya.
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Maya Grozin. I'm currently working at Synapx. We're a fairly fresh company, been around for 3 years, and we primarily are automation first. It just so happens that a lot of the work we do is within the Microsoft ecosystem, but really what we do is we automate processes. We've recently moved into data and data warehousing, and of course now it's all about AI. But we work across industries, across professional services, so legal firms, accountancy firms, but really we're trying to automate any manual processes and help companies move along on their digital transformation. So very high level introduction, but that's primarily what we do.
I'll just say one more thing, Maya, you used to be my student.
That is true, yes.
All right, go ahead, Dan.
Hi everyone, my name's Dan Jenkins. I'm one of the founders of Emmi. I'm also a recovering lawyer. Usually people leave at that moment. What are we building with Emmi? So a lot of it comes from my frustrations practicing as a lawyer. I don't like to do things very much. So what we're looking to do is use open source technologies such as large language models to build agentic systems to do things for us. So an example would be conflict checks at the top law firms. That's something that we're looking to automate at the moment, to take the humans out of it completely. So our goal is to try and remove humans from processes so that they can do fun stuff like actually lawyering.
Thank you, Dan. Anthony, to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Andy Stables. I'm CIO at Forsters. We're a law firm based in London, about 600 people. We're mostly known for our private client and real estate focus, although we have many other areas of our firm. And fun fact, 51% of our partners are female.
Damien, to you.
I'm Damien. I'm Innovation and Technology Director for Brodies, which is a UK top 50 law firm based mainly in Scotland, but serving all of the UK and international. We're about 900 people now. I've been in legal tech for about 25 years, and 18 of those at Brodies, but Brodies is constantly and consistently growing, which means feels like we're constantly evolving and doing new things. So it's always changing, which is great, but that also then has challenges in terms of scaling everything as we grow. So that's me.
Thank you, Damien. Last but not least, James.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Head of Innovation and AI at Lawfront. Been with the firm around 6 months. Prior to that, I'd spent just shy of 10 years with Evershed Sutherland in a variety of tech and transformation roles. I guess most recently working on a number of AI initiatives within the firm. The Lawfront mission is one of, I think, trying to deliver interesting and kind of exciting new services to clients, looking at efficient ways of changing the way that law is delivered as a service. Lawfront itself is only 4 years old. It's private equity backed and made up of 5 acquired hub firms, regional firms from around the UK, and there are some aggressive growth plans within the firm. And it's an exciting time for all of us, I think, to be in legal tech, but specifically within Lawfront.
Brilliant. Derek, to you.
Yes, Derek Southall. I run an advisory business called Hyperscale Group, and we help in-house legal teams and law firms on a whole range of technology, operational and strategic things. Spent sort of approaching 30 years in law firms, legal tech, like Dan, former lawyer, started life as a corporate finance lawyer. Brilliant. Is that over to me now?
Yeah.
Yep, brilliant.
To you.
Okay. Right, so the thrust of today is what we're trying to get to the bottom of is what solutions have we already got on our desktop that can actually help us all in our day job, and that's going to be a really positive session where we're all going to be enthused as we walk away. But I just want to start with just looking at the problems we're trying to solve. So if we can just with the panel just start sharing some of the issues that we see within law firms. And for those law firms, these of course won't be issues in your law firms, these will be issues in law firms that you know, as opposed to things, but just what are the type of nuts and bolts questions that issues that we think could be solved. So I mean, I'm just going to start off. File opening in most law firms is suboptimal, I think. Now, any other takers from the group? What would you like to see solved?
A big one for me, Derek, was onboarding. That used to drive me berserk because I just wanted to get on with the work and start earning money.
Completely. And I think conflict checking, you're going to have a queue at your door as well, I think it's fair to say, when you solve that one.
Yeah.
The other end is obviously billing as well, and getting the bills that are getting paid. All of those kind of boring but essential things are really important.
I might go with a slightly different approach and say, instead of a specific part of the process, for me, it is the awareness and understanding of the legal teams of what is available, what could solve the problems that they've got. And then, of course, the age-old issue of time to then engage with you to solve them. So I think for me, when I'm looking for opportunities in the business, it is trying to find those individuals who've got the time and the appetite for transformation.
And from what you've seen, James, what do you see as some of the core skill gaps? Is it about products or particular things with documents, or how they're engaging with systems with clients? Well, what are the main challenges you see?
I think a lot of it comes down to just the amount of time that is spent doing things, as Dan said, inefficiently. Things that take longer than they should do. I think as someone that has spent years around technology, the art of the possible, what's out there, what you can use, and there are common tools that have been around for decades that often aren't utilised within these operational teams. And I think it's getting them to understand that this stuff is there, taking the time to learn those skills and to change their ways of working to be able to adopt them. So I think there's a huge amount of opportunity for automation. Lots of things that are done in a really kind of, I'm going to say old school, but that I don't mean that to sound really rude.
Can I fine tune the question and ask all of you to what extent is the solutions or the innovation is for the practice of law or running a business? So, someone that said billing. So any other process, is it just the practice of law, or we should think wider, more operational?
I was going to say both, to be honest. One of the problem statements that we see is actually firms staying compliant. So GDPR, retention policies, and making sure that you're automating that, because that can be really burdensome for legal companies. And then there's the timesheeting, the billing. I think it all goes hand in hand. So yeah, I would say both, to be honest.
Yeah, I think exactly. I agree with Maya there. I think as well, it tends to be the things that are not the things that lawyers are trained to do. So we all have, I'm sure, problems with people using Excel badly and not knowing that there's a better way. So we've done a lot in recent years with finding and unearthing ridiculously laborious reporting requirements that people have been doing in Excel rather than using Power BI or other tools that are available. And it just, I think whenever anyone says to me, what's the biggest challenge for us from an innovation or a technology perspective, they want me to say AI or whatever, but I always say it's inertia. It's people just doing things the way they've always done them and not thinking maybe there's a better way of doing this, or they'll complain about spending 2 days doing a big giant report, but they won't then put their hand up and say, can someone help me so I don't have to spend 2 days doing this? So, and that's not particular to lawyers. That's just a human thing of we're all busy and it's easier to just do the thing rather than stop and step back and change the way you do the thing.
I think that's a great example, Damien. I mean, one other thing I would chip in is just generally about client experience. We supposedly have all of these best of breed systems in legal, but most of them are point solutions of some sort. And you think about the suboptimal client experience, all the rubbish they go through with sort of the onboarding and all of that sort of stuff, then combined with their main interaction with their law firm will be by email. You think about it, that broadly, and then and you sit there thinking in a world possibly, if they're lucky, a bit of high Q. I mean, we've acted for in-house clients who've joked as law firms have come into tender rooms going, what are they going to call high Q next time? And you're going, in this wonderful world of technology and solutions, there isn't really a platform for legal, and the experience, I think, is weak because of these disparate systems and over reliance on email. I'm looking at nodding heads there. Maya's nodding it away there, but so
Yeah, I was
Go on,
just going to say it's because we built an Outlook plugin for one of our clients for solicitors, because they spend around 90% of their time on emails. So this Outlook plugin allows emails from clients to go straight into our case management system, and that to be automated, which shows that problem statement is quite universal, and there are solutions. I think it's just presenting those to law companies and showing the possibilities of the tech, because it is there. It's just knowing what to utilize and where to go.
Yeah.
So the reason for that, sorry,
Damien.
Derek, I was just going to say, you kind of have to look at the drivers of why we've ended up with everything being email. It's because of the regulatory requirements to keep the full matter file, and the easiest way to do that is to have things by email and in the document management system. If they start to be in WhatsApp or portals and they're not then synchronized back to the matter file, you start to get a fragmented file, and you can't actually produce that file if you are required to for a mandate or for an audit or whatever it might be. So I think there's usually a good reason why things aren't being done in an efficient way, but that doesn't mean they can't be made efficient. But there's usually at the background, it's not that people are trying to do things badly. It's just that there is a sort of reason that is sometimes particular to legal, which is that we have to keep everything in one place so we can have the full file available at all times.
It's also the lowest common denominator, isn't it? Everybody's got access to email. Some people may not have access to, or have barred access to particular systems, which we would prefer them to be used from the client end. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think though, I mean, just one tiny thing that happened to me in a former life, but I got a phone, I was a client partner for this big client, and I got a phone call from the GC who wasn't very happy with an email he received. And I thought to myself, oh, this is me, what have I done? And I thought, hang on, I've not sent anything. And I realised it was one of my property colleagues. But you sat there looking at these systems, which were good systems, where multi-million pounds worth of investment had gone in. And again, I can't access easily that communication. And you start thinking about, what does my optimized dashboard or screen look like? You know, it would have client news, it would have events, it would have bills. And I think the problem we've got is many, I mean, fairness, the clients, SME clients who operate on a case management and on an all-in-one system probably have more holistic information presented to them than the larger firms who operate on a best of breed basis. And I don't think we've given, you know, if I phone up an insurance company, they've got the Derek Southall screen and they can see every conversation. In 35 years of legal tech, we have not yet developed that. We haven't developed that perfect interface, or our suppliers haven't. And so I think there's a huge amount that can be done there. But before I move on, any other burning problems that you can see with what we've got? Any other thing? I mean, there's a fair list there to work at, isn't there? In fairness.
I think the only other thing I'd add to James's point is a culture and an attitude of being inquisitive and wanting to know more and having the desire to utilize what you've got is essential, as well as the time and the resources to throw it. But
just to drill down on that as well before going to it. So I see people coming into the profession, and I think this is a comment that's applied over the years, as being quite keen and open to learning things. But what you're saying, I have witnessed a lot. So what happens? Do you know, sometimes and Tzameret, you know, sometimes you hear the educational establishments being blamed. Oh, people need to be better. But it's quite weird. It's almost like when they come into law firms, they're keen, and then do we knock something out of them to sort of, or are the priorities they're given just not to move forward and learn this stuff?
Yeah, we made the mistake of asking them to record every 6 minutes of their life. And you know, that comes with a massive overhead in terms of how you think, also a massive administrative burden, and suddenly your priorities are driven from that. So if you are incentivized and you know, sort of there is a culture around, you will spend X amount of your time doing innovation or doing something other than your client work, then you've actually got to be incentivized towards it. But you know, if you're being hammered to record every 6 minutes of your life and make it chargeable, then you're not going to have as much of a desire to do something else.
Dan, you
Yeah,
were
I think-
nodding. Do you have anything to add? Is it a technology solution or cultural issue?
Both. I mean, look, we're biting off lots of the problem here is going to be lots to chew on. But I think Anthony's hit the nail on the head. When your value is being derived for how many units you're billing, why on earth would I be looking at doing anything else if that's what's paying my bills? So when I was a lawyer, I spent a lot of my free time looking at the legal landscape for optimization for my firm, but it never really landed because, again, further along the line, you've got the cost of adoption and the cost of training everybody. So that, look, there's mines everywhere we look here in terms of what the problems are. So I guess it's a take your pick. Which one do you want to focus on?
So look, standing back, let's focus on then what we've got on our desktops and stuff to solve this. So we've seen a tsunami of systems hit us, if you like. So lots of law firms have got some great stuff. And then we've got all these phenomenal best of breed systems that we've got. And then we've got everything that Microsoft does. So we've never been in a better place in terms of capabilities available to us, but these problems are still outstanding. So I mean, of the things we've just talked about, what do we think we could solve with what we've got? What and how would we do that? If some of this goes to if you designing firms from scratch with the stuff you've got now, how would you design it?
I guess the best place to start is which way are you looking from? Are you looking from a vendor perspective or a lawyer perspective? I would also argue that a regulatory perspective should be put in there as well. You say client perspective. There's a lot of stakeholders in how well the legal sphere is working. So I guess where would you like to start? Is the first.
I'd probably start from looking almost like you're looking from the perspective of, you could argue like a COO. I want to make this firm as great as it can be, as efficient and compliant as it can be, to create great opportunities for all the people coming through. That's would be my lens that I would come at it. But I mean, of the things that we've got, what could we use much better to make firms better?
I'll have a quick stab at that from a pure Microsoft perspective. So I think, and I'm going to say 5 years ago, I feel like I used 5 years as a time gap for all sorts of the past, but I think increasingly as I get old, I forget how long actually time has passed. But it feels like in the last 5 or so years, Microsoft have got much better or much more interested in law firms, in the legal game. Their technology has matured in a way that I think has benefited us as law firms are getting more comfortable with cloud. More and more of Microsoft's offerings become readily available. You can look at things like the Power Automate suite, all the different tools that you've got in that space to work with. A lot of this stuff organizations will already have licensed because they have to buy, or more often than not, have to buy Microsoft. Most organizations are running Windows laptops, are running, Exchange Online, whatever it might be. And I think there's a huge amount of value, especially when we talk about the amount of time we invest in email, in using some of those tools to help with that journey. Obviously, you do need a degree of technical expertise to get you up and running with that, but firms are increasingly bringing those kind of individuals in. And I think people in traditional tech careers are also starting to get kind of clued up now on the value of being, trained and efficient in the Microsoft stack. And then I would couple that with, if we want to get into AI, which is inevitably going to come up at some point, isn't it? I would say Copilot Chat is another great tool that a lot of firms now have access to, that they probably aren't leveraging, in that journey to educate their teams on the art of the possible with this tech. We've been doing an initiative around it just in the last few months. We looked at the tool. It's part of our Microsoft investment. I'm not going to say it's free because that's not technically true. You're paying a handsome fee to Microsoft for that service, but it's part of the package you're probably already paying for. It's enterprise grade, it's secure, it's safe. And yes, it may not be as sophisticated as some of the other models out there, but it's a great place to start people on that journey of understanding. So I think sometimes just looking at some of the Microsoft tech that you're already investing in and asking, how can we use that more? Damien made the point about just Excel, leveraging some of the products that you've had on your desktop for years and getting to know them better. But I think there's a lot in that cloud space that Microsoft now offers that firms aren't necessarily taking advantage of.
And who drives that, James? Does it need a person like you with your skill sets, or what obligation, if this is on the lawyers, what's obligation on business services to do this?
I think from an awareness point of view, there's definitely an obligation on the sort of technical team side to understand what the capabilities are and then to sort of work with their business to look at opportunities. Obviously, I'm in a fairly unique position to be that bridge between the legal teams and the technology team. I will say that I couldn't sit there and automate you anything in Power Automate. Quite frankly, that's not within my skill set. You need someone better than me with the tech. But I think it is up to us to recognize the value that it can bring and to look at the systems that we're using and try and think about how we can connect them. I think it needs to be collaborative though. So I'm a big fan of collaboration when it comes to expertise. You can't just have lawyers solving a problem. You can't just have the innovation team or the tech team solving a problem. You need those teams to work together to articulate their expertise and then to solve that problem as a unique, diverse project team.
Maya, your company is built on Microsoft tools, right? Tell us a bit.
Yeah,
Your angle.
So most of the work that we do is on the Microsoft Power Platforms. That's the tools James just mentioned. So Power Automate, Power Apps, Power BI. And I would say when it comes to successfully implementing these tools in businesses, there's going to be someone within the business who starts researching this type of tech, understands the possibilities. We start a project, and then what we do is we ensure there's champions inside the business. We do a lot of train the trainer, so make sure that they understand the tech, gather feedback and bring it back to us. as a supplier, we don't have the capacity to implement change as well as when it comes from the inside. So we've seen that work really successfully. But what I would say for legal companies is to at least kind of identify one process, just one process, start with that and say, okay, how can we automate this or make it better? And before you know, you start coming up with all these ideas on how your internal processes could be run more smoothly, from, like we were saying, from tracking your time. So one of the apps that we're building, the case management system, we have a stopwatch, which then automatically puts lawyers' time in a timesheet against that matter. So there's little things that you can think about doing that really pushes the business forwards and helps innovate. And then people start generating ideas. So I think it begins like an acceleration process once you see these efficiency gains and see how much benefit it brings back to the individuals in the business.
So my follow-up question is to what extent the knowledge stays in the company? So you say like looking for those champions to keep that. So for example, if you teach them, there is a you configure for them or in collaboration some flow. To what extent they will be able to replicate that? So I guess some of the participants in this session are not necessarily from a large law firm, and small ones do not have the capacity to go to you or to go to Dan to buy these services. They want to have that knowledge internally. To what extent the knowledge stays there for them to replicate that innovation process?
So, I mean, the point of the Power Platform is that it's low code and there's citizen developers, and it enables people within the business to implement the technology. It just depends how advanced you want to go. We find that, as soon as you start playing around in the technology, usually you do need more specialized skills and knowledge, but there is like a way that you can go without that knowledge. I know many companies where they have in-house people creating Power BI reports. So you can do it. There's resources online. For example, my business runs X in a days on Microsoft's on a platform where we teach people about Power BI, etc. How much they take that away and can implement it themselves just depends on the complexities really of what they're trying to do.
I think this brings an interesting question for the IT professionals on here, because on the one hand, you could argue Microsoft is a great toolkit and is to an extent no code. But then there's a piece about to what extent, where do you draw the line on what you are happy or not happy for a user to be doing within that platform?
Yeah, the governance is really important. It's the biggest issue for us at the moment, is defining the governance on it, because whilst you want to really enable people to do all this stuff, we need to make sure that we haven't got people who are going off building stuff that's going to create a massive technical debt or legacy, or any security issues if they're using their own account or a privileged account or some other nightmare scenario. So whilst we've got a tool set available, it's really important that people know how to use it, and you've established your own governance, documentation and everything within your firm, so you're not building yourself a nasty legacy that's going to come back and bite you.
Damien, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think what has happened with low code over the years is that there's a promise of kind of citizen developers who, you just give them the tech and away they go. Inevitably, there's a point at which that breaks down a bit, where you can get so far, but then you actually need some techie skills to complete whatever it is, because other than very simple things. However, I think things like, for example, Copilot Studio make it very easy to create, well, what Microsoft called agents, but they're just kind of very simple chatbots really. But that kind of thing where you're just saying, think about what you want it to look at, what kind of rack you're doing, what data you want it to answer questions from, and then think about some sort of guidance for that agent to stick to, and then you can very rapidly create something that somebody can use to answer questions about a data set. That would have been really, really difficult to do a couple of years ago. and just on James's point, I mean, you think back 5 years ago we were just fresh into the pandemic. 5.5 years ago, Teams was just being launched, as far as I remember, or maybe 6 years ago. So things do move very quickly, and there's a sort of where we'll end up, who knows? But the tools are certainly getting easier. But we've found Power Platform to be most effective when we give it to someone who has a development background, and then put them together with a product owner or someone who can define the requirements and then work to build something much faster than we could if we actually coded it by hand. So I think the the sort of vibe coding idea of being able to build something with prompts is similar, because yes, you can do that, but if you don't know what you're doing, as in you've never done development before, you've never done any programming, you can only get so far before, when it doesn't work, you don't know how to fix it. Whereas a skilled developer is always going to be much better at using Power Platform or ChatGPT to build an app, for example. So there's a so far you can go with the citizen developer, but you do need technical specialists. Of course, I would say that.
What's interesting here, I go back to this point that we've got, if you look across existing products, new entrants, new startups, Microsoft, we've got this sort of array of solutions and capabilities we've never had a chance to look at before. But I think it gives us what I call the buffet problem. So I think I'm really bad at buffets. So I was at a buffet last week, and I thought, I've done it again, where you don't look at everything. You sort of start at one end, and then you look and you're thinking, because it's there, I've got this like random array of food, I've got some sort of, I don't know, blueberry pie with some sort of pasta, and you're like, what have I done? It's complete. But you've got this.
But now you made me think about food, you see.
Just before that's a really bad thing to do.
Lunchtime session, that's a bad idea.
We've got the same parallels here, haven't we? So if you look at a user, point number one, they won't see all of the buffet table, they'll see part of it, okay? And then actually what they're going to do is going to be a little bit experimental, and they're going to be a bit push for time. You're in the queue, etc., etc. So you sort of this, and then you end up with this. Right now, you could argue that it's not a problem for buffets, because everyone has to go away and consume what they've done. The problem goes back to Anthony's statement, which is legacy debt. What the danger is, people come and go from all organisations, different things are adopted. It's a bit like, if poor old Anthony's left to manage everyone's buffet plates after. So I think we've got to be really careful about where we're going with this. And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. But I think we've got to educate people better on what's on the buffet table. Think more. I mean, just because it's there, we don't have to eat it. You look at the Microsoft wheel. I mean, it's phenomenal, really, what the thing, and that's ignoring all the great things that people like iManage or Elite or anybody else can do, or any of the case systems. So how do we help people with that? How do we help inform them what can be done, and how do we help them make the right choices?
I think we to avoid indigestion, just to really hammer your metaphor to death, I think we have to really look at sort of helping people to understand what they have. I mean, we've all had the experience, I'm sure, of someone coming and saying, do we have any AI that does X, Y, or Z? And we say, yeah, it's not quite AI, but it's the thing that you've had on your desktop for the past 5 years that you've never looked at. So some of it's understanding more about what the problems are, and it's very difficult to actually get people to, first of all, identify that they have a problem and then tell you about it. So I mean, when we talk about how do we get people to use this stuff, a lot of it's about trying to get them to tell you that they have a problem that one of these tools might fix, and that's obviously often the hardest thing, is trying to unearth these problems. And I think what AI has done is kind of flushed them out a bit, because people think AI is magic, so they go, oh, can we have some AI that fixes this problem that we have? And the answer is usually not AI, it's something more mundane, but it's something generally that you've already got in your stack. It's already a Microsoft tool. I mean, I did a session with our trainees where I just was talking about AI and all that kind of stuff. And then I also went, oh, by the way, 365, we have all of these tools. And they were like blown away by the things that were free in speech marks for them, because we already had them. And they just didn't know about, what OneNote can do. It can do loads of stuff that nobody knows about. What Whiteboard can do, all these kind of tools that are kind of not, they're maybe at the fringes of the buffet. They're the cheese board end, and people don't get that far, sort of thing. I'm trying to help you out here, Derek.
I've got the thinking of food problem now, but it's so. I mean, how does this mean? I mean, okay, we've got all these systems doing all these fantastic things, and it's changing by the day, isn't it? The standard line about cloud software. It's like going away for a weekend and someone rearranges your kitchen. It's constantly changing and altering. But how can we even begin to educate people enough to know what is possible, and ideally what we think is the right way forward? I mean, like, for example, if we decide Power BI is the right way forward, to pick up Maya's example, how do we educate people about that and get them to do whatever they're going to do in a way that is responsible to avoid problems coming down the track?
I can give you a practical example of what we're doing. So one of the first things I did when I got in the door at Lawfront was to set up what we're calling our Innovation and AI Champions group, which is basically me trying to find people in the business who've got an enthusiasm for tech, a desire for change, maybe a bit of influence in their social group or the team around them, so that when we start educating them around what can be done, they can look at the work that they do every day. They can look for those opportunities to implement that, because I can't be an expert in all of the different areas of law that our firm covers, and all the different disciplines and the depth that you have to go to. So the idea with this group is that is their job. They come to me once a month. I host them, just 1 hour. I've got to be sensitive to the time I take away from them. And we, in my example, I bring vendors in to demo different tools, try and keep them fairly broad in their use case. So we're not looking at the kind of niche practice specific tools, just things that will offer general value. And I put it out there a bit like your buffet example as an appetizer. Is this interesting to you? Do you want to eat this? Would you like to put this on your plate? Because if they don't know that these tools exist, they don't know these technologies can solve the problems that they've got, then they're never going to ask for it. And a bit like, Damien, your point around the AI, the magic wand that is AI has got people talking again, because suddenly they feel like there might be a solution to the problem they've had for 20 years. I think the Champions Forum, at least, is attempting to try and engage across our practices, across our various hub firms, all of the different lawyers in some way, and to sort of tap into their knowledge and their expertise, show them some tools and say, look, do any of these do it for you? Do any of these apply to your area? Can you see a use case? If so, let's have a conversation, and let's work together to collectively build a business case for investment, and then we can have a conversation about trialing or whatever might come next. So I think for me, the first step is just trying to find those individuals and then engage them in some way. And our forum is one way of doing that. There are others, of course.
You get the buy-in and the commitment from the firm. I mean, is that something that people do in addition to they give up their lunch times or something? Or is that something that's carved out of their day as a recognised thing that they need to do?
So in our example, I don't know how everyone came to the table. I'll be honest. I went out to the various practice heads and said, I'm putting this group together. Would love to have someone involved from your area. Please volunteer someone or ask for nominees. So I don't know exactly how every individual that made it to that group got there, whether they were told they were coming or they were given a choice. And there's a variety of seniority levels that make that group up. I would like to think that they're there because they want to be there and that they have an appetite for this. It is outside of their normal chargeable time, so there is a commitment that they're making to come along to these things. We do ask quite a bit of our teams in terms of other projects and initiatives that are going on as well, so we have to balance that. We can't have all the great same individuals across all the projects. We have to spread them around. But yeah, I'm not quite sure how they all got there, if I'm being honest, Eric.
Okay. Maya, Dan, sorry.
To go. They were voluntold to go.
Voluntold, that's the one.
Someone say recently. But I mean, Derek, just a little thing on the point you made. I mean, it's really hard to do training for technology these days because every month Microsoft are releasing new features, and so maintaining any kind of videos or guidance on how to use things, we've had to completely change the digital skills approach, which is much more focused on bite-sized kind of updates on, oh, now it can do this, and oh yeah, you know that button that's just disappeared or moved over to the left-hand menu, here's why, and here's how you use it. So the kind of pace of development requires a pace of kind of reaction in terms of how you raise awareness and or give guidance on how to use the tools. So that's quite challenging. There was a time you just did all your materials and then you trained everyone every year on how to use the system, and it changed very little. But now it's kind of very rapid, which is great from a functionality perspective with all the cloud tools, but it can be quite challenging from a usability perspective or an adoption and awareness, because you've really you're up against it in terms of reacting very quickly.
This is a question to Maya coming about this, about how you keep clients informed about, your products and et cetera, But there's a really large vendor who are very successful vendor, and I was in a room and had all this briefing on all these fantastic things that we're doing. And I said to one of their chief directors, I said, this is all great, but how do you bring the users on in the organization? And I was quite shocked. He said to me, this is a massive problem because we as a vendor sell in via one person, so somebody like, I don't know, a James or somebody, and we are then totally beholden on them communicating anything about our product changing. And he just said to me, he said, if you can find a way of solving this, it'll be worth millions to us, because it's just, so they were really frustrated, but they said, we recognize the problem, but we haven't got an answer to it. But that is the thing. But Maya, so how do you keep your clients informed, if you like, about how to get the best out of things?
So I guess you're referring to user adoption and then keeping them informed about new features we have. So as I mentioned before, it's really about champions. I'll really hammer this home. Change comes from inside. Us as a vendor can't come in and say, right, now this is the direction we're going. You now need to get onto this technology, use this application. It doesn't work like that. We have to almost nurture our clients and make sure that we have that interaction where we're working with them side by side. There's champions that the stakeholders have chosen inside the business, training individuals inside the business on how to use the apps, and then have regular interactions with us where we're informing them, okay, this is a new feature release. They go inside the business, keep them informed, and then provide us feedback. So it's that continuous feedback loop and that collaborative effort with our clients that ensures that there is adoption and that they're getting excited about this new tech and what it enables for them. I think once people see the benefits, just small things where it comes to the email example I gave, where they don't need to kind of keep audit trails, that's all done for them, time sheeting is all done. Once they realize the benefits, this is what also I explained before, everything else just accelerates. It kind of opens your mind to the opportunities of the tech, so that helps bring people on the journey with us. So like I said, collaborative effort, you have to bring people on inside the business, and there has to be a real case for change. And ultimately, I always like to say that every business is now a tech business. There's no way around it. It just is the way it is. And there's younger people coming to businesses now. They're digital natives. They expect these things. They don't want to be doing these manual processes. They want to utilize technology to the very best. So it's businesses, they have to get on board with that. Otherwise, there's huge risks. So that I would really hammer that message home.
I was just looking at Anthony here. So are you excited about all these digital natives with high expectations coming into the business? Or do you see it as a great thing, Anthony? Or do you see that as a problematic thing, that you're going to be left with this legacy to clean up?
I see it as a massive opportunity, and this is why the governance framework is really important. It's not about restricting people. It's about just making sure that it's under control. Oh, sorry, I seem to have lost my camera. I don't know why it's just Teams says it's not working. Okay, well there you go. So I'm still. Can you still hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I think you must have said something negative about Microsoft a few seconds ago.
Well,
It's up to you. You're going to give a voice like a Dalek in a second.
Yeah, so the some of the problems can be around just time and communication and resource. I mean, one of the things that we found that tends to work well is to have a good example. So maybe an example where a couple of partners have been collaborating using a spreadsheet with the client or something like that that gets emailed around, and where actually you can just take that, put it in a couple of SharePoint lists, put a Power BI over it, and before you know it, you've got something that used to take them, a few hours of manual processing that just happens automatically for them. And if you can take something like that and champion it and broadcast it around the firm, you tend to get more buy-in. So it's really about understanding who are the key communicators in each area of the firm. We're fortunate we have knowledge development lawyers spread across the firm, and we can use them as a gateway into different departments to help identify situations that are causing frustration or things that take a lot of time, and start to form a kind of backlog of work where processes can be improved. I mean, it's one of the things where you could just do an enterprise search on every single Excel spreadsheet and find out where they are, and that will keep you going for another couple of decades in just getting to the bottom of that kind of workflow. So a heck of a lot of opportunity there, and using people who are enthusiastic that are yet to be shoved into a direction where they are having to be more conscious about how much time they're charging versus how innovative they can be in using the technology. Then we're onto a good thing. So yeah, I welcome them with open arms.
If you listen to Satya Nadella of Microsoft talking about the future, and I don't know if he sort of just put some stuff out there to create debate or it's what they genuinely believe, but he is arguing you could almost have the decline of SaaS systems where there's this, what you engage with is a layer of AI that just does stuff for you, and everyone's their own bot of AI. So actually the fundamental, anything that you've got that is a system almost becomes a legacy backroom system almost. But do we think that's where it's going to go? What do we see as the sort of the future over the next sort of few, use James's 5 years, the next 5 years? Do we just see people getting better at what they've got, or better at Microsoft, or is all of that going to become yesterday's news and it's all going to be replaced by AI, and you're interacting with AI and AI agents to get stuff done more like, go off and do a conflict check, onboard this client? What do we think? What do you think the future looks like?
Well, I'll jump in here because we're actively building that. I think there's going to be a mix, and just to start the villain origin story, as it were. So when I was a lawyer trying to learn new technologies that the firm or someone else would introduce, that's great, but equally it was also annoying. There's an adoption curve. You have to learn how to use the technology, and typically it's not as good as you want it to be. And how do you do this? How do you do that? There's a lot of issues there. So the principle that I came into building this product with is, how do we take the human out of this as much as possible? Not to devalue them, but the opposite. I want them to be doing valuable things. Conflict checking or onboarding, for example, I don't need to be part of that. I would rather be working on looking after the client or doing actual chargeable work. The tools that exist now, and I don't like people who say AI is the answer, because AI is just another tool in the box, but the tools that exist now are so smart at understanding human language without being trained on intent specifically. And people who know Dialogflow, Google, may know what I'm talking about, where you actively have to teach it every single time. That went with ChatGPT to a large extent. So now you have something where either you talk to it, or the data that you have talks to it and understands what to do with that data. And if you marry that up with its ability to output in JSON, for example, speak computer language, you have something that can understand unstructured language from humans, put it in a structured format, and then do something with it. So that exists. That's what we're building. So if you look at that now and where it's going to be in 5 years, what you're talking about is already there. So it's not about whether that will exist, it's about what will that be pointed at. And I think there will always be need for champions and people who understand the technology and understand the use cases, because there is that bridge that you need to connect between computer and human in terms of build. So that will exist. But in terms of what things will look like, I mean, in my mind, I think a lot of business operations hopefully or should be run in the background with minimal human interaction, or at least that's my hope.
I think there will be some of that. I agree, but there was a really good article in the FT recently about why AI hasn't replaced a load of jobs yet, and it was saying that we all expected it to replace administrators, secretaries, paralegals, but the problem is it's very good at intellectual work where there's kind of predictable answers and it can do incredible things like pass the bar, etc. It's very bad at dealing with messy workflows, constantly changing circumstances, different priorities, jumping the queue, and juggling volatile and changing information, which humans are very good at. So we may get there in the end, and it may sort of surpass or overcome all of those problems. But right now, the agent dream is a little way off, because it can deal with the very fixed workflow, which is predictable and doesn't change, and the same things happen or need to happen all the time. But there's still a place for the humans to deal with the messier things that are less defined. But I don't know what others think of that, but I thought that was kind of an interesting way of answering the question of why this AI is amazing. Why are we all still working if it's so good?
Well, I think there is a little bit in this, Damien, about the responsibility and liability bit, in that, we are dealing with grown-up things where we are liable if we get it wrong. And I think I can understand why AI companies will not adopt 100% sort of responsibility and liability for things, but we can't ignore that, so there's a layer as to because of that, we are inevitably going to need some sort of level of human interaction, human verification in the mix, until something else can provide that level of comfort. But any other views on the future? James, you look poised.
I was only going to liken the example you've just given to the supermarkets randomly. If you think about it, we were 10 years ago, maybe more than 10 years ago. This is my issue is skewed time. When you went to a supermarket and you went to check out, you were standing in a queue and a human would check you out. That's just what happened. You join one of many tills that would run for aisles in large supermarkets. Now, when you go into a supermarket, it's lots of self-service tills with maybe one member of staff running between 10 of them, coordinating when they don't work. And I feel like it's going to end up in a similar boat here. We're always going to need that human intervention. You're just probably going to need less of them, and their role with that technology is going to change. They're going to be there coordinating the AI to do the task and self-serving, etc., rather than physically doing the task. So I think it's just that the human role changes, and perhaps unfortunately leads to it needing less of us to run those shows.
Unexpected item in contract area, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It always, I was going to say, it always makes me laugh when people focus on replacing humans when it comes to technology, because it's really not about that. It's about this technology being an enabler for humans. Like, you have to change the conversation, say, how can this tech help me in my day-to-day work? We shouldn't be thinking of reducing headcount and kind of optimizations from that side. Of course, like, you might think of it from that angle, but really, with the kind of humans that we have, how can we enable them to have more free time to get better insights on the data that we have? Because it's not an AI conversation, it's very much all about the data and how we structure the data and how we can have intelligence on top of it. So I think it's reframing the conversation and thinking from that angle, instead of just, I can save money by replacing humans here and there.
Yeah. So we've got one question that's got, what I was about to do was to say to everybody, okay, can we just have your quick thoughts as to, what's your biggest takeaway for getting the most out of what you've got? We've also had another question in the audience as well about how long is it before AI can be trained to become an expert, etc. So you can take either of those, but you've probably got about a minute each. So who wants to go first?
I'll have a go at the question if you like.
Yep.
I think how long I think it's already there, isn't it? To some degree, I think it's the degrees, the levels of expertise, the levels of complexity of the law. Was it just this week, Garfield AI got approval from the SRA to do low value legal work, all entirely powered by AI. So I don't know, Dan's shaking his head either in disgust at the fact that Garfield got signed off, or he's saying, James, you're wrong. But I feel like it's already there to a degree. It just depends on what area of law you're looking at and the level of complexity. But I don't know, Dan. I'll pass that straight to you.
Yes, no, sorry. It's just, I think there's two ways I look at Garfield. One is fantastic from the SRA adoption point of view. In terms of what it can do, I think it's still largely doing template work, speaking as a litigator. But I think it's a fantastic step forward in terms of looking at the technology and playing with it. I largely disagree that this is about a humans play. I think this is about a problem play, and where humans sit in that problem. I also disagree about messy workflows. I think the technology is a lot further forward than I think we're discussing here. And I think adopting Garfield is a really positive sign by the SRA that it's prepared to look at things that it may not fully understand yet, or is just trying to understand. But in terms of the output, I think it's quite basic at the moment.
Thank you. We've got 2 minutes for the three of you. So biggest takeaway or a view on that question?
Shortly.
Any take, Anthony?
Biggest takeaway, I would say, always start with a problem, and don't. While we've talked about Power Automate is a fantastic tool, but if you try and do everything with Power Automate, you could get unstuck very quickly. So don't be the person who walks around with a hammer and everything's a nail, I'd say. So yeah, start with the problem, understand the problem, and just talk to people as much as you can. Just get to know what they're doing.
Damien?
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I agree with that. I think start with the problem, and there's another question that's just been added there about what role managers and lawyers can play in getting the change ball rolling, and how do they get to the buffet. I think it's a kind of meeting in the middle thing. We use product owners to kind of bridge that gap to go out into the practice areas and talk to people and find out what problems they have, and then try and match those to the technology solutions. But I think for people within the firm as well, it's letting them know that change is possible, and then hopefully getting enough of those champions like James talked about to sort of be able to envisage that there might be a solution, and then work with us to build that.
Yeah. Maya?
I've just been thinking a lot about what enables companies to start having individuals really research into the tech and try and improve their day-to-day tasks. And I have a client who wants to bring our company in and do a lunch and learn and start talking about the Power Platform and these technologies. So for me, a takeaway is really about the culture and enabling these conversations and making people think about tech and what they can bring into the business. I think it really goes down to the culture of the company, and that's something I think that would be quite good to take away and think about how you can embed that in your company.
Fantastic. So 2 quick closing thoughts from me as takeaways. I think one being your buffet table plate is only so big. We have got to bear in mind everything we do as here has got to fit within the capacity that people have got. Secondly, I think Maya triggered this whole bit about suppliers. I think we're probably not getting enough out of our suppliers in terms of inviting them in, getting video content. We might need to help them as to how to do that, but I think there's a real role for doing that better and pushing even people from Microsoft, instead of these 50-page emails, we want like a short 5-minute video to send around for once a month, But look, Just do you want to close it off?
Yeah,
That's all
thank
about
you. So
Tzameret?
we're just on time, 1 minute behind. So first of all, thank you all panelists, Dan, Maya, Anthony, Damien, and James, and co-hosting Derek. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you all for participating. That I just put in the chat tomorrow's session. It's going to be about creating the conditions for adoption. So if you want to go there and register, if you didn't do that before. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you again.
Thank you.